how does this propagate? And and maybe there'll be some people listening who actually recognise this in themselves. They think, actually, yeah, I'm not very good at recognising faces. But is there, like you say, is there a definitive sort of cut-off point to what you determine as face blindness versus someone who is just not as good as others at recognising faces?
Yeah.
How do you determine that?
Well, there's a debate surrounding that, and there's different schools of thought on whether what we're actually seeing here is some form of continuous ability. So in the same way, I could put everybody in the population in order of how good they are at, say, maths, at times tables or something. We could do the same for face recognition ability. And some people would make the case that those who are just at the very end of that natural continuum of ability just happen to be those that we're putting a label on as having this condition, face blindness or developmental prosopagnosia. Now that becomes slightly more complicated when we know that we have got an existence of some people who have a very pathological version of this condition, are acquired prosopagnosics. So
what do you mean by that? Sorry, pathological?
So by pathological, we mean a very clinical, a very definitive disorder. So an actual different group to the rest of the population.
So do you mean the head injuries? Is that what you mean by that?
The head injury, because they've actually had some actual brain damage. We can actually, this is where this word pathological comes in, we could actually look at a brain scan of these people and say, they've got brain damage, they've lost what they could do before. They are, acquired prosopagnosia tends to be very severe. It's very striking if somebody, as I previously said, awakes from a coma and suddenly that ability that was there has gone.
That's a very black and white one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Before they could recognise faces, now they can't.
Absolutely. So you've sort of got these people over there and the rest of the population over here. Now, with the developmental form, it's not quite that straightforward because we haven't found a gene. We're not. There's not really been any studies that have consistently found an unusual pattern of anything going on in the brain of people with developmental prosopagnosia that we could say, well, there is a biological underpinning to this. Actually, there's quite mixed evidence about what might be typical and what might not be. And certainly no firm conclusions there. So it's much more difficult to say, well, these people deserve's probably the wrong word. We should treat these people as being in a very distinct group and putting a label on them as we do for people who might experience ADHD or autism or dyslexia.